Welcome back, everyone, to the NSHSS Scholars Connect Podcast, where we're inspiring students to stand out, step up, and take action. I'm your host, Angelica Oliver, and today's episode is a special one. When many people hear the name Nobel, they think of prizes and prestige. But behind that legacy is something even more powerful, a deep commitment to responsibility, learning, and contributing to the world in meaningful ways. In this episode, we're honored to be joined by Ludvig Nobel, who offers a thoughtful and personal perspective on what it means to carry forward a legacy rooted in values, not just achievement. As the son of NSHSS co-founder Klaus Nobel, Ludvig reflects on the importance of recognizing potential early, staying grounded in integrity, and encouraging young people to explore their paths with confidence and purpose. Together, we'll talk about leadership in today's complex world, why community and mentorship matter more than ever, and how students can embrace their curiosity while also remaining true to their values and themselves. Let's dive in. Hello. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Nobel. It is such an honor to meet you and have you on the NSHSS Scholars Connect podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing wonderful here from we call it the Venice of the North, where we have lots of snow and it's already dark. But thank you so much, Angelica. I'm honored to be here.
Well, for our members who are listening and the parents and educators who are supporting the students who are members, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so, I'll start with last month. I had the opportunity to participate in Nobel Week together with NSHSS in Stockholm. And spending some time with the students during that week was, it was both meaningful and inspiring. And Nobel Week it invites reflection, not just on achievement, but on responsibility. And the Nobel story is often told through discoveries and prizes, but at its core, it's about how ideas, when they're paired with a conscience, can shape society for the better. And I really believe what matters to me today is not history alone, but how those values translate into the lives of students navigating a complex and uncertain world. And education is no longer just about acquiring knowledge. It's about learning how to think clearly, act responsibly, and remain human in systems today that often move very, very fast. And that's why conversations like this matter. They create a space to pause, reflect, and remind us that leadership begins long before any, just titles or careers. It begins with curiosity and integrity and a willingness to take responsibility for the world we're all entering. And I work at the intersection of this leadership and communication and responsibility in this rapidly changing world. And much of my work today focuses on helping people, and especially younger generations, just to think clearly about values, purpose, and long-term impact. So I care very deeply about education that goes beyond just the credentials and actually helps people become thoughtful, grounded students. And being with the students, listening to their questions and encouraging this independent thinking, it's one of the most meaningful parts of what I do today.
I love that. I think it's very much reflected in Nobel legacy with organizations even like NSHSS, which has benefited from the Nobel legacy. So I think that it's not just rooted in achievement, but in responsibility to society. What does courage look like in the context of that learning, that leadership, and that service, especially today?
Yeah, well, You mentioned the Nobel legacy, and certainly I get back to that courage, but the Nobel legacy is it's rooted in not just achievement, but in responsibility to society. So what does that courage look like in learning and leadership and service, as you mentioned? Well, I think that courage today is less about dramatic gestures and more about everyday choices. In learning, it means asking honest questions and admitting when you don't yet understand something. And perhaps in leadership, it's about taking responsibility for decisions, especially when they're uncomfortable. And in service, it means, I don't know, staying human and ethical in systems that are today, they're just often rewarding this speed or visibility over reflection. So real courage is choosing integrity, even even when no one is watching.
So true. I feel like a lot of our work in society is based off of, you know, our the intention behind it. Young people are a big part of that. And I see your work with young people, and your father also, with the co-founding of NSHSS, had a strong belief in recognizing that potential early. So the recognition part of the service to society that we're really focused on, um, why is it so important that shaping that confidence in that and giving young people opportunity? And why is that so important?
I think that, as you mentioned, this early recognition, it gives young people the permission to believe in themselves before everything is figured out. It doesn't tell them who they must become. It simply affirms that they are capable of becoming something. Um, and being seen early, it builds this confidence without pressure, and it opens doors that might otherwise be closed, so that the sense of recognition can be incredibly stabilizing during these years that are, oftentimes so uncertain.
I think even more so today than ever. Well, I feel like every generation has grown up in a time where it feels like you really don't know what the future holds. And I think that's especially true for students today. So that recognition, like you said, is very important for the confidence of students. I remember growing up and being like, I don't know what I can do as a young person. Like everything just seems so big and unattainable. So it's cool that you're fostering that in young people, or at least like giving the words to express what that means for young people to society, uplifting them.
Yeah, very well said.
So how do organizations like NSHSS help carry forward that Nobel legacy by supporting students before their paths are even defined?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I would say that organizations like NSHSS, it creates a space and a direction for exploration rather than just forcing any early answers. So they build communities where curiosity and responsibility are valued together, and they connect students with ideas, mentors, and peers that just expand how they see the world. So in that sense, NSHSS, it acts like a bridge. It's not a destination. It helps students to grow into their potential before their paths are fully defined. And I feel that that's, where I'm coming from and see the connection.
Yes, I feel like that, especially that part that you said with mentorship and connection and making sure that there's paths that students previously didn't think were possible. They have that opportunity to explore through different organizations. So I think it's really cool that you even mentioned mentorship because, you never know what students may be thinking. They may be thinking that they can't do something that they really want to do because it just seems so far off, but it's that mentorship part that really, really helps. As the world becomes more interconnected, we live in a global world. You're in Sweden, I'm in America. It's it's like we can have those conversations from across the world, which, hasn't always been the case. So we live in a very interconnected world that's very complex. So what values from the Nobel legacy do you believe matter most in this interconnected world for the next generation?
Oh, yeah, it's so important. And, Angelica, I would highlight responsibility, integrity, and curiosity because responsibility, it reminds us that our actions, how small or big, they have consequences that go beyond ourselves. And integrity is important too because it helps young people stay grounded in a world today, like you were talking about, what I call noise and misinformation. And curiosity, it keeps minds open across cultures and disciplines. And so together, these values help students navigate this complexity without, becoming cynical or overwhelmed. We stay grounded.
I absolutely love that because sometimes with the world feeling so large that, being grounded is probably one of the best things that you can do because, you can think logically, you could think in a way that's more strategic when you're more, grounded in your values and your belief, but still keeping that curiosity aspect to it. I think that that's very, very important, especially, well, for anybody, but especially young people. I 100% agree. So, if you could leave our listeners with one piece of advice, we're talking with students who are members of an SHSS, but also the parents and educators who want to support them in any way that they can. With what idea from the Nobel legacy should they carry forward, and what advice would you give them?
I would say you don't need to wait until you're certain to act responsibly. Often responsibility comes first and clarity follows. And I think education isn't only about what you can achieve, it's about who you become in the process. And if students stay grounded in their values while remaining open to learning, they'll find their way. There's just so many different aspects to look at here. So I think that perhaps if there's one thing I hope students take away, it is this. Again, you don't need to wait for permission to act responsibly or thoughtfully. Leadership doesn't begin with a title. It begins with how you treat people, how you learn, and how you choose to engage with the world. My advice is just if you stay curious and grounded and willing to take responsibility, you'll already be further along than you think.
So many gems that you just said in this interview because it only takes one small thing to really make a big ripple. It have to be something where it's like, oh, I am doing this. Well, we have a lot of students who actually have nonprofits who are, you know, creating whole they're inventing things. They're having that innovation piece, but sometimes it feels like, well, I need to do something big in order to like really fully change the world. But no, it's like also those small things that you could do
Yeah.
changes throughout the day.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what you mentioned, I think it's a great metaphor, Angelica, is this, a drop of water hits the pond, and then those ripples, like you said, they move through everything. And I think that just points to this whole conversation we're having here today. Everything is interconnected and it's happening very, very quickly. So if a student has a nonprofit that they're working on, they might be thinking they're working in a vacuum and that doesn't have an impact. But those ripples, they're moving through the city that they're living in and the state and the country out to the whole entire planet. So you're right on there, and I'm 100% with you. So thank you so much, Angelica, for this wonderful conversation. I'm so happy to have participated with this. So yeah, thanks a lot, Angelica.
Thank you so much for joining and also representing your family, but also giving really great insights for our members and for our students and the next generation. So I hope that people are taking notes and actually implementing some of these ideas as far as the curiosity part, the courage part. Like all of those are really great insights. So thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, and thank you so much, Angelica. So goodbye, everyone.
As we wrap up today's conversation, one thing is very clear. Legacy isn't about pressure or perfection. It's about the choices we make, the values we uphold, and the impact we create over time. Ludvig reminds us that curiosity is a strength, courage is a practice, and contribution doesn't have to wait until you have a title or a platform. For students, parents, and educators alike, this conversation is a powerful reminder that recognizing potential early and nurturing it with support and community can shape lives in lasting ways. Thank you to Ludvig Nobel for sharing his insights and reflections with us. And thank you to our listeners for being a part of the NSHSS community. If this episode resonated with you, be sure to subscribe, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and continue to explore what it means to lead with purpose. And if you're just now stumbling upon this and you're not an NSHSS member, then join us. Learn more about us at nshss.org. We would love to answer any of your questions, so please reach out. Until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and keep connecting. Today's episode was brought to you by the National Society of High School Scholars. The intro and outro music was produced by NSHSS Student Ambassador Sage Leggett.